All right, welcome back. So let's talk more about the Flask API. Um, so let's just take the customer's route, which we were looking at in the last video, as an example. So remember, we are working in the customer's blueprint, which a blueprint is a collection of routes that have some sort of affinity for each other, some reason to be implemented together. We are creating a route, sort of a REST API route, with a get HTTP verb and for the resource / customers. Okay. Now, before I get too far into this, let me remind you that when we previewed this in the previous video, let me just show you. It has business phone, company, first name. So I want to talk about what the route is and then why that's happening and tell you how to fix it. So in the route, first thing I do is I log some information. Then I use the database object, which I'm importing. This is the same one we used in the create app in this function. It's the same, there's just one database object. Okay, so we're asking it for the database object, and then from that, we're asking for a cursor. So think of a cursor as like an object that can connect to, execute a query, connect to a database, execute a query, and sort of like manage getting the result of that query back to the application. So in this case, this Flask route, this Python function. So in any event, so we have the cursor, and then we ask the cursor to execute. And as you see, this is simply a select statement. So it's selecting ID, company, last name, first name, job title, business phone from customers. Now, there's a few different ways you can execute a query or just sort of set the code up. You could put it in basically like a string object. So we could say, the query equals, we could do like a multi-string Python situation and say, like select ID, company, last name, first name, job title, business phone, from customers. So we could do that. We could embed, and then inside the execute function, just basically pass this string. We could use a formatted string, the sort of F string. There's, not numerous, but several different ways you can handle it. So right here in this example, I'm just directly embedding the SQL statement inside the execute function. Okay. Now, I do want to point out that particularly if you're taking input from the user and executing a query, you would want to sanitize the input to make sure there's no sort of SQL injection issues. There's some security things to think about, but for our purposes, we're just keeping it pretty straightforward. Okay, so when we execute the query with the cursor, the data is there. I don't really want to get into like where it lives. Is it still in the database? Is it already in the Flask app? But you can access it from inside this function, okay? So if you recall, when we looked at the database connection, we set the cursor class to cursors.dictionaryCursor. So what does that do? That basically says to MySQL, return the data or the stuff that comes back through cursors already in a dictionary form, okay? And if you know some Python, you know that dictionaries and JSONs dictionary objects and JSON, the data interchange format, look similar, okay? So what we're going to do is, so the reason that the output looks wonky is because this code was written for a particular style of return from the cursor, and honestly, it was before I added the the code for returning as dictionary. So what all of this was doing was essentially taking the tabular data from the database and converting it to JSON so we could return it. But since the cursor's already returning the data as JSON or as a dictionary, we can convert that directly to JSON. So what this means is I no longer need this line. I don't need this line, so I'm just commenting them out. I do need to fetch, so this is what's getting the data. I don't need this for loop anymore, and I don't need yeah, I don't need that for loop. And I don't need exactly this line. I need a different version of it. So I'm going to copy it and paste it and then comment it out so that I can add in here. I want to add, let's see, the data. So the information I get back from the cursor from fetch all. Okay. So that's going to take the dictionary data, package it up as an HTTP response object. So remember, HTTP is a request response sort of protocol. So I'm taking the dictionary data and I'm packaging it up into a response object called the response. I'm setting the status code, so I'm sure you're familiar with like 404 and whatnot. The status code for everything's good is 200, and then I'm telling the response object that what I'm sending back is JSON. So that's the data that I'm sending back. So this stuff is coming back to the, in this case, to the browser as JSON so that it knows how to present it. Okay, so let's see if I made any mistakes. So I'm going to go back to my browser and I'm going to rerun this or reload this page. And so now you see that the information has been updated. So, you know, it's different companies, you know, different titles. It's not business phone, so on and so forth. Okay. So this is a basic GET query. It's just to recap. We're going to do some logging so we can keep track of where we are. But we get the database object. We create a cursor from it. From the cursor, we execute a query. Then we take the results from the fetch all from the query. I'm sorry, from the cursor. We package it up in a response object and we send it back to the browser. And so that's kind of the quick overview of what this particular route does. If you look below, there's a put route, which is put we're using for updating information. And let's see, below here, this is getting information for a particular user. So let's look at this for a second. So you'll notice that this resource has a variable in it. So /user ID, /user ID. And the way we indicate to Flask that we're going to be sending a variable value here is we put it in angle brackets. Now, when we're doing that, we need to tell Flask/Python that, well, so Flask is going to take that value and essentially send it as a parameter to the getCustomer function when we get to that point. And so we need to sort of wire things up so that they can kind of know about each other. But in any event, you'll notice what I'm doing here. This is sort of a different way. This is using a formatted string. I am creating a select statement with ID and then 0 in curly braces. And so the first thing I put here, format user ID, is going to be substituted for this sort of, sorry, that was not intended, for the curly brace 0. Okay. And so then, again, this is packaging things up into JSON. So I'm going to comment this out. I'm going to comment this out. I'm going to keep the fetch all. I'm going to comment that out. And then I'm going to add in the response equals make response. And then I'm just going to pass the data. Okay. So let's save that. Now I need a customer ID. So if I go back, let's just say customer ID 4. So I should be able to say now /customers/4. Oops. Customers/4. And I get the information specifically for that customer. Now I'm only getting first name, last name, and ID number. First or ID, first name, last name. But that gets you the information. So this is a get. You'll see here that because this is put, I'm using an update query, not a select or I don't know, a delete or anything like that. All right, I'm gonna stop this video here and we'll pick up here when we return. Thanks.